Released in 1993, this romantic comedy is the second film written and directed by Nora Ephron. With a stacked cast, including Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, Bill Pullman, and Rita Wilson, this film sits on the tomato meter at a 75% certified fresh. It was nominated for 2 Oscars, one for Best Screenplay and one for Best Original Song, A Wink and a Smile. With a wonderful soundtrack and what some might call some slight stalking, today on You've Never Seen It, we're talking Sleepless in Seattle. Welcome to You've Never Seen It, an audio podcast where I am on a mission to never hear these 4 words again. I am your host, Allison Salamone, and joining me today is my good friend and Nora Ephron stan, Kayleigh Vaughn. Hi, Kayleigh.
Hey, Allison. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for hanging out. I'm excited you're here. When I started doing this whole list, you asked for Sleepless in Seattle almost immediately. Like, you couldn't believe I've never seen it.
Well, it's one of those things where I was looking at your list. There were definitely 3 that stood out to me of like movies that I'd seen a lot of, but I ultimately settled on Sleepless in Seattle. I know that Kelly had already called When Harry Met Sally.
Yeah.
But I personally have more of like a personal connection to Sleepless in Seattle because
Okay.
I have a very vivid memory of seeing this movie in theaters when it came out. It was the summer after my first grade year. And I know we're about the same age. So it's just really cool because I remember the theater we saw it at is the theater in my hometown. I'm from Rock Hill, South Carolina. And I remember my mom took me to see it with my first grade teacher because they had become pretty good friends. And she wasn't my teacher anymore. So we were like, I remember going and seeing this movie in the theaters. And it's probably my first, I would say like adult movie. I feel what I mean, not like adult movie,
which is
like,
funny because
that wasn't
it's
a
rated
Disney film.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because it's rated PG, but like I was watching and I could have sworn I thought it was. I don't know why I thought it was higher. Maybe because of When Harry Met Sally and knowing that Nora Ephron wrote both of them, and she had directed Sleepless in Seattle. So I think I just assumed that it was the higher. But like I'm looking on IMDb right now, and it's only rated PG. When little Jonah Baldwin yells on the phone to Dr. Marcia, a hoe, my dad is leaving with a hoe, or something along those lines. I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh, I tell you what, the language in this. I mean, so we can get into it, So you've already. I know you've seen When Harry Met Sally, and I know you probably already you talked about it with Kelly already.
Yeah.
So this is your second Nora film, right?
Yes, this is my second. I don't think, and I looked through her filmography. I don't think I have seen any. No, I lied. I have seen Michael. I think that's.
For that being the one you've seen cracks me up because it's definitely her weaker film, one of her weaker films.
That's the one where John Travolta plays an angel, right?
Yes, it is.
Yep, that's the one I've seen.
Also remember seeing that one. We rented it. I saw that as a rental at the beach. I remember. See, I have that weird memory, Allison, with movies. Like I can
I remember going to the beach with your family.
The first time I see movies.
Oh, absolutely. That's what I love about movies is there's always something that like pulls at it. And before we get too deep into it, I kind of want to backtrack and get into, I just want to get kind of a little history for you and like your history with movies. And you kind of already said like why Sleepless in Seattle, but is there anything else about this movie that you love so much?
Well, this I think probably sums up like why I'm a Nora Ephron fan because she clearly loves old movies and I like old movies. She clearly pays homage to a lot of old movies and a lot of her movies. So like as you kind of go through and you watch more of her movies, and I hope you do, you see that she has nods. And so if you like classic cinema, you you see that in her films. It's like really like her love letter to like these like classics. And
Mhm.
I was that kid who, besides, like I said, I'm a 90s kid, so like I said, besides just going to the Blockbuster and just checking out like whatever the new releases were on the new release wall, I was the kid who would always walk up the aisle and I would pick, old movies to watch, but then also was 90s was like the time when like AMC and Turner Classic Movies were these two channels that were just like super
Mhm.
popular. So like one of my favorite things to do as a kid was just watch old movies on TV because they were available for us to watch. And we didn't have streaming, so that was what I would do. I
Yeah.
would just watch old movies, and that's how I discovered like Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn and all these, like, I mean, those are just like a couple of my
I would say I think the
favorites.
first time I watched
But
Breakfast at
I just
Tiffany's was a TCM, on, because like you didn't want to pay my parents didn't want to pay an arm and a leg for what it was to have like HBO and Cinemax and Showtime and what it was back then. Like it was insanely expensive.
and DVDs were super expensive too. So you either rented them
Yes.
or like you watched what was on television, you know?
Right. Yeah, yeah, no,
So
100%.
yeah,
Absolutely.
and I got a lot of education from, I mean, Robert Osborne. I mean, I used to love to hear him talk about movies. Like that was what made me kind of fall in love with old movies. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember. So in Harry Met Sally, it was a lot about Casablanca, which I told in the previous episode that if someone had just told me that sooner, I probably would have watched it sooner. But in this one, it's all about An Affair to Remember, and I love that. I like
Which
that there's
have you
that
seen?
central. Of course not. Of course I haven't seen it. This is why I'm doing this podcast.
You need to add it to your list though, because it's a good
I
one.
really, I feel like I need to now. And it's so funny the things that, because I love the style. One of the reasons why I love Nora Ephron is I love that she's a dialogue person. I love that the movie has all of her films just have amazing dialogue, and it's nonstop. And Meg Ryan is just brilliant in everything that I've seen with her in it, especially in these Nora Ephron films. She just thrives in these kind of
Yeah.
characters that are being written for her. I have to look up. Is this the first time that we get that Meg Ryan Tom Hanks team up?
No, the first time
Oh,
is in a movie that was not directed by Nora Ephron. It's Joe
okay.
versus the Volcano, which you probably have heard of before. It's different. It's not a Nora Ephron movie. I can tell you that. It's very it's he's got a point of view as a filmmaker. Like I will say that. It's
Hmm.
but they do have chemistry. So like I know that they're, so when you're talking about Sleepless in Seattle, I think it went through a lot of changes and a lot to get made. I know that there's an original guy who worked on the screenplay and he was trying to get it made. And it had gone through I think several rewrites before even Nora got brought onto the project. And she really was just trying, like at that point they just wanted it to be witty because like according to, I think the plan was always to be your main characters literally don't meet until the end of the film.
Right.
Like that was always the original like concept for the film. But she was really supposed to like kind of add some wit to the characters. And I know that, this is the thing about Nora Ephron films, and you'll notice this if you watch more of her films. All of the characters, no matter how small they are, they all have like moments. Like, and she's even said that I think in interviews about this film.
Yes.
But once you go back and watch it, like everybody is like a character. Like one of my favorite like side characters is the babysitter. She cracks me up.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't get, like, she doesn't speak a whole lot, but she's funny when when he's running around trying to find Jonah and like she's just standing there,
Jonah,
like not concerned, like does not care.
She says Jonah.
Jonah. Yeah.
My
Jonah.
also favorite when he's going to the
that was
date
great.
and she's like clearly they're watching something he shouldn't be watching, and she motions to him to turn the channel when he comes down the stairs.
Yeah.
Like they're watching some kind of like, must be watching some kind of like soap opera or something like that. I don't know.
Where whatever she was watching, clearly Jonah picked up on, because he started talking about, I don't know if it was before or after that scene, but when Jonah is talking with his dad, but if you meet someone, are you guys gonna have sex? And like Tom Hanks looks and goes, well, I hope so. Is she gonna scratch up your back? I'm just like,
it's so I mean, the chemistry between Tom Hanks and the kid who plays Jonah, which I'm blanking on the kid's name, but because he wasn't in a lot of things, I don't
Ross
think.
Malinger, yeah.
Yeah.
He did a lot of voice acting. He was the kid that did the voice of TJ on Recess,
Okay. I don't think I knew
whatever
that.
the
But
Disney Saturday
I
morning.
only know him from this, but he. I mean, honestly.
Well, to be fair, I'll say, to be fair, I looked it up on IMDb because I got it right here. So I'm gonna,
It's all right. I loved Recess though. I was a Recess fan. Not gonna lie.
I was a big Recess fan. Who wasn't? This whole cast is stacked. Like,
oh God,
the amount
yes.
of people that are in this movie. You have Bill Pullman as Walter, who's like, allergic to everything. I love that we get Rob Reiner in here. Like, I love that we get the Rob Reiner cameo. You got Rosie O'Donnell. You got Rita Wilson, Victor Garber. I mean, it is just David Hyde Pierce makes an appearance, like a young David Hyde Pierce. I was like, oh my God, that doesn't even look like the same guy from Frasier.
As her nerdy brother,
doesn't even look like the same
like.
Guy.
I mean, even he has this moment. Of like, we got married because I think her name was Judith, because she said we had to get married. Like, I love that.
Or we would break up. Yeah.
Or we'd break up.
It's either we get married or she was going to leave me. And it's like, but how many marriages are because of that? And it's kind of, it's just very wittily written. And, it kind of, I mean, it puts I mean, this could never be remade today because there's no such thing as late night call-in radio hosts anymore. Like,
I don't think
this is like,
I mean,
not really.
Clearly,
this is the equivalent.
Even the voice of Dr. Marcia Fieldstone, who is a clear ripoff of like Dr. Laura or something like that. I remember like listening to Dr. Laura as a kid, You know who the voice of that? You know who the voice of Marcia is, right?
Not off the top of my head, but
for Mrs. Maisel fans, she's the mother-in-law.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
No way. I love her. Oh my God, that is her. That's funny.
Yeah. So
I love that so much. Her,
but she's such an iconic character in the film, even not seeing her. Yeah.
Well, without her, there's no movie, right? Like, without Jonah calling into that radio show and Meg Ryan hearing Tom Hanks talk about his dead wife and crying in the car and making this whole connection. And I always love how, like in Harry Met Sally in this movie, there's a friendship connection with someone. So like Meg Ryan always has that best friend that's either she's looking out for their best interest or they're looking out for hers. Like, she was not going to mail that letter, but you can clearly see Rosie O'Donnell's like trying to be supportive whenever Meg Ryan talks about Walter and what they're doing with their lives. And she'll sit there and roll her eyes and like make her snide little comments about like comparing it to like her husband. But without her, that letter never would have gotten sent, right? Yeah. And they wouldn't set all these little things into motion. So I love that there's a big emphasis put on not just love relationships, but like friendship relationships too.
Yeah. And familial ones. Because the movie has to rely on those relationships or it doesn't work. Because again, they only had that one brief like fleeting moment when she goes to Seattle and like they lock eyes and then they don't see each other again until the end of the movie. So like they have to rely on the chemistry of other like characters to keep you invested in the movie,
Yep. And when Rosie O'Donnell calls her in the middle of the night because he's back on the radio and she, as like the phone's ringing, she elbows Bill Pullman in the face and then trying to run around to like be poor Walter. Poor Walter gets the shaft. And that final scene between the two of them, he is such a good guy. Like, that's what's so, I think that's one of the things that annoys me is like, yes, Tom Hanks is also a good guy. They're both good guys. But, like, Walter didn't really deserve that. Like, when Meg Ryan was like, I don't deserve you, Walter. I'm like, yeah, you don't. You really don't. Even with all of his allergies and his air purifiers and his, the little things that he does. Like, he really did love her and he really did want to be with her.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that like he's okay with it ending because he knows she's just not that into him is fine. But like it almost feels like from the beginning she wasn't that into him.
Yeah. She was
And I
convincing
feel like that's
herself.
another thing that happens. Right. And just forcing it.
Yeah.
And like that's not fair to Walter. Poor Walter.
Yeah. Well, I think Walter
I hope
gets.
he turned out okay.
Yeah, I'm sure Walter finds somebody in the end. I
Someone
mean,
who appreciates
he's
his
Bill
air
Pullman,
purifier
so
and his
he's gonna find
allergies.
somebody in the end.
Right? Right? He becomes the president of the United States. So, you know, it's fine. Uh but yeah, no, poor Walter. My is so I feel like a couple nitpicky things about
Mm-hmm.
this movie. Number one, there is no way that a child would be able to book another child on a flight using her mother's travel agency and her mother having no idea until afterwards.
Oh,
Like, I
no.
feel like that would have charged something.
Oh, definitely. I would believe it
Right?
more
Like,
now. I would believe it more now. I think it's way easier for a kid to book a flight now than it was back in
yeah,
1993.
100%. Then I'd like go through a whole bunch of things and like he had to get to the airport and check himself in and no one's like, and I get they said like if as long as you're 12 you don't need, but like I still feel like you need a parent to check you in.
Oh, yeah.
Like I feel like that was a thing. I don't think you can just like go to the airport as a child by yourself. Also, who took him to the airport? Did he call a taxi driver?
Right?
That taxi driver's very irresponsible. For
Right. Who put this kid in a cab? Like, no one, because
Did he walk? Like, where did he go?
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but Jonah's resourceful, man. Good for him. And then my only other thing that it seems because I love when a city the cities that they're in are characters in this movie as well. It's
Yes.
called Sleepless in Seattle. So you have Seattle, you have Baltimore, and you have New York City.
Mm-hmm.
There's a thing called time zones. So when it is midnight in New York City on New Year's Eve, it is not midnight in Seattle. The ball is not dropping at the same time. Right? Like we're not
No,
crazy.
it's not. No.
Okay.
Well, they do point that
That
out.
kept happening
They
too.
do point that out because the call-in station's in Chicago too, so it's in even a different time zone because Dr. Fieldstone's in Chicago. She said, "Oh, you're calling late," and she's like, "Well, it's not that late in Seattle."
Right.
So he does say that.
The Christmas one. He does say it one time. And now they're both celebrating New Year's Eve at the same time. It's nighttime. And it like, what time is she sending Rosie O'Donnell home? That
Yeah.
like, he is also awake. And it's like, so don't think they thought that through. It is a movie. I get
that
it.
kind of stuff just does. Like, I never get taken out of anything for that kind of stuff. I'm just like, whatever.
Nope, I do.
Oh, man.
This is why people hate watching movies with me.
It's
Because that's
all right.
literally what I took away. It's definitely a much different. You know what's really funny? This movie released in the summer of 1993, but it takes place Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day.
Yep.
So I feel like timing wise, that also wasn't.
Yeah, they did. The marketing for that was probably not the greatest. Honestly, they should have capitalized and made this like it should have been a Valentine's Day like release date night kind of like a thing. Is what they should have probably marketed it as.
Yes, I agree. That makes complete total sense. But no, it was a summer. It actually, and compared to some of her other movies or like other movies of this time, it still is technically certified fresh, but it only has a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes. And according to IMDb, it's at if I can scroll up here, IMDb has it as like a 6.8 out of 10. So, they got it at like a 7, like a C.
Yeah.
And I don't,
I think that I have the nostalgia for it. Clearly, I do. It's not her
Right.
best film though. It's not my favorite Nora Ephron film. So I probably would rank When Harry Met Sally. I mean, even if she doesn't direct it, but I would rank When Harry Met Sally probably up there. I love Mixed Nuts.
She gets a lot of credit for for When Harry Met Sally. Like, people
Yeah.
feel like that movie is just as much her film as it is a Rob Reiner film.
Because it is. Like, they very much collaborated
Right.
for sure on that film. So
yeah, no, I feel like you can't talk about Nora Ephron and not talk about When Harry Met Sally. See, Mixed Nuts is your favorite. It's another one that I haven't seen. That's the one with Adam Sandler.
He's in it. Yes, I wouldn't say.
Yes,
he's got a very small part. I mean, it's Steve Martin.
The little things that I've learned.
Steve Martin is like the main character, and Madeline Kahn, like, really love Madeline Kahn. I mean, I don't know if I know you've not seen a lot of things, but if you've not seen like Madeline Kahn in like Clue or like
yes,
in all the Mel Brooks movies that she was in, but like
I love Clue. That's such a fun.
We lost her all too soon.
Yes, agreed.
But she's so good in Mixed Nuts.
Oh, you get Anthony LaPaglia. He's a Joe in Empire Records. Love me some Anthony LaPaglia. Granted, I've only ever seen him in Empire Records, but I loved him in it. This is a pretty.
And supposedly, so Parker Posey. Yeah, Parker Posey plays her and Jon Stewart. Like, the Late Show with Jon Stewart do cameos in Mixed Nuts.
Oh, that's cool.
And Parker Posey, apparently, I think she was supposed to have been cast originally in something that I think it was Sleepless in Seattle, and then Nora, I think, felt bad, and so she, it gets. I know you haven't seen You've Got Mail, I'm guessing, so that's their other movie that they did together.
Yes, but I have not seen it.
But she gets cast in You've Got Mail.
Okay.
She plays, she plays Tom Hanks' girlfriend in You've Got Mail.
Nora Ephron loves breaking up relationships. It feels like.
Well, so I don't know how much you know about Nora Ephron, but she was in journalism. Like that was her normal, like that's what she was doing ahead of time. The movie Heartburn is the movie that she wrote based on the book that she wrote about the breakup of her actual marriage when her husband cheated on her. So I think that plays a lot into how she writes romance.
Okay.
And then, so you say that's probably, I would say there's probably a correlation there for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh my God. Meryl Streep and Jack Nicholson. Another one I got to add to the list.
Well, yes, another great one. I mean, it's literally very autobiographical, that movie is. And I mean, one of my favorite things is I feel like, I don't remember, I love just Nora Ephron, which is funny. She was a funny woman. Like, if you saw her like on like AFI like presentations or just like accepting awards or something like that, I remember like she goes just, I remember her saying like, you just get Meryl Streep to play you. That's always a good thing. If you get Meryl Streep to play you, you're doing well.
Seriously. And very young Meryl Streep too. Look at her. Oh, what a smoke show. I mean, Meryl Streep will always be a smoke show.
So, I mean,
but
yeah.
Seriously.
Can't argue with that.
The other thing that I do love about this movie is the soundtrack. You get the Harry Connick Jr., you get that kind of jazz revival. It was nominated for screenplay as well as best original song that was put in here called A Wink and a Smile.
So that was the original song for this movie. I didn't even know that. See, I've heard Harry Connick Jr. sing that song like for years. I never even, as a 6-year-old or 7-year-old, however I was when I saw this movie, it's not like I knew that Harry Connick Jr. wrote that song for this, or that movie, or that song was written for this movie.
It was written for. Well, again, this is all according to IMDb, so I'm going based off of that. It was nominated for best music original song for A Wink and a Smile, which is a beautiful song. A lot of Harry Connick Jr. on this soundtrack though, and I absolutely love it. Granted, who doesn't love Harry Connick Jr.?
Yeah, there's definitely like I said, that there's definitely that kind of jazz callback to those standards really plays into the homage to the old movies. But then also there's like the fun ones too, like wasn't there like Back in the Saddle again?
Yeah.
Like that was a really fun one to put in there.
Yeah.
The one that honestly like stuck out to me, and I love the song, I love classic country, was Tammy Wynette's Stand By Your Man. I was like, why is this song in this movie?
That's right.
That was the one that was just kind of like out of nowhere. I was like, I'll give you the Back in the Saddle again, like, because that's cute, because he's like going back into like the dating world and stuff. But I was just like, I didn't understand the whole Stand By Your Man one.
Yeah. A Wink and a Smile was performed by Harry Connick Jr. and it was written just for this movie. That's fun. I also liked the version that they had because, again, big Casablanca fan, in the opening credits as time goes by. I loved the version that they had in this one too, which was really nice. It's always nice to hear as time goes by anytime. This is a good soundtrack. God. Ugh. Then you get also the music from Affair to really Remember as well in here, which is cool. Like little moments.
Yeah.
Which is, who is an Affair to Remember's? No, who is it? Cary Grant. Yes.
Cary Grant. And Deborah Kerr. Remember, like when it read it?
Yeah, I mean, that's
one of the best like scenes in the whole movie.
Or like one of the other scenes that I love was so you have Meg Ryan and Rosie O'Donnell watching it and crying and reciting like the lines that they do. And then later on in the movie, you see Rita Wilson and Victor Garber there with Tom Hanks talking about it. And she starts talking about it. And then she starts crying. And then the two of them start making fun of her because it's like, yep, nope, men don't understand this movie. And then they start joking around about how like the Dirty Dozen made them cry. Or like the one thing
all improvised, by
really?
The way. That whole scene about the Dirty Dozen was all
I had no idea.
by Victor Garber and Tom Hanks.
That's cool. That's cool. That I had no idea about.
Yeah.
Look at you with all your little trivias. So I know we've talked about a lot of different like moments in here. If you could rank your top 3 moments of Sleepless in Seattle, what would they be?
I mean, honestly, the iconic speech where pretty much Meg Ryan falls in love with Tom, like whenever he basically recounts how he fell in love with his wife, like that gets me every time. Even I get misty-eyed thinking about that.
Yes.
That is like my number 1 for sure.
For sure. Oh, no, for sure.
Yeah. Number 2 is probably that scene like we were just talking about. I love how funny it is. Like I love that just relationship of like his sister and brother-in-law and like their relationship with them and them talking about, like that movie and stuff like that. Like that's just like that. Just like I think that just that scene in general, like especially when he's telling them about the woman she's dating, Victoria, and how she laughs like a hyena and stuff like that. That's just so funny to me.
And he keeps trying to like
which, by the way, that lady who plays Victoria, I was a huge, like when I was a kid, I used to watch, my grandmother was really into like soap operas and loved ABC soap operas. And so that lady who played Victoria, she played Allison, I think her name was Allison Perkins or something like that. In One Life to Live.
Okay.
She was like a villain in like soap opera. So like it's so funny because I remember her from this movie and I remember her from that, and like that's it. I don't know if she's been in anything else, but that's where I remember her from. And then probably my last one would be I mean I like the end of the movie. It's just like I think they did a really good job of like having it fit together.
Yes.
And so they did such a, like I said, that because it truly was about that relationship of like him saying, hey, we can do this on our own. We don't need to have somebody else
right
in this relationship. But clearly, because he already had seen Meg Ryan, he already kind of had like there was something there because he saw her when she got off the plane and he saw her, but that part before that, I liked that that she chose to shoot it that way where he forgot the bag and they had to come back. But they had that moment before where it was like, I know you want me to have a wife, but we're fine, just the two of us, right? Like we're okay. Right. Like I love that. Like I just love that familial relationship.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Probably one of my, if I would say like with top 3, one of them I feel like I have to combine every scene where we get Tom Hanks and Jonah, where we get Sam and Jonah together. Like when they have that whole fight where he tells Jonah to to shut up. He's like, shut up, mom never yelled at me. And like Tom Hanks just goes on one of his epic like Tom Hanks tirade of like, what am I gonna do this weekend? I'm gonna get laid. It's 1990. I can get laid. And he like starts like justifying how many people he slept with his like 8-year-old son. Like it's a totally normal thing to do.
How long you been standing there?
Yeah, how long you been staying there? Forever. That's yes.
You just buy them being like father and son.
You really do. How long you been staying there? Forever. What did you hear me say? 6 girls in college, maybe 7, 8. Mary Kelly.
Oh, so good.
It's
So good.
hilarious. And then I really do love the scene where when Walter's telling her, like, I don't want to, like, I love you and I'm putting that aside. I don't want to be someone you're settling for. And the fact that he
Mm-hmm.
knows that and he's feeling that and he's accepting it and he doesn't want it, because that's kind of a theme that's been going on. Like, that's what it's almost like almost everyone in her family has done other than her parents. You know, that's what David Hyde Pierce and his wife did. Like, he married her because it was that
Mm-hmm.
or we break up, and he didn't want to break up. So I think that's such an important kind of realization that they have. And then, of course, the moment that first when she falls in love with him, where with that whole line, and then also when he's talking about how, well, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna breathe in and I'm gonna, and like remembering Julie, and
Mm-hmm.
then one day I'm not gonna have to remember to do it, and I can just, and I'll just be able to do it. And I'm just like, oh my god, this is so nice. It's so,
Yeah, I know.
oh. But yeah, no, I mean, just like when he was like, "There's no way we're going on a plane to meet some woman. Didn't you see Fatal Attraction?" Joe was like, "You wouldn't let me."
You wouldn't let me.
Because, well, I saw it and it scared the shit out of me. It scared the shit out of every man in
Scared the
America.
show everybody in the
Every
country.
man in America.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, so
yeah,
good.
yeah. Yeah, that, like, that Walter line of like, I don't want to be someone that anyone settles for. Marriage is hard enough without bringing such low expectations into it. And I think that's like
Mm-hmm.
such,
Mm-hmm.
it's like that whole part sticks with me because it's so true. Right? Like, how many people in this world just get married because they think it's the thing to do, and they are just, you're comfortable with the person that you're
Mm-hmm.
with, and it's just, it is what it is kind of thing. I mean, that's not me. But how often is that happening? And it almost feels like she does stuff that, while so out there when it comes to this whole idea of Sleepless in Seattle and like the misconnections and all of that from a radio, like, while that's out there, the dialogue and the conversations and the characters are so real and so relatable, almost.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like she does that
And
so
that's what
well.
Nora does
Yeah.
well.
Jinx.
Yeah. she she grounds it, like the concept is so ridiculous in a way, and the whole point of the concept is it ties it back to the original movie. Like it is referencing An Affair to Remember, and not to give it away, but you kind of get the gist of it just watching this movie. But this whole thing of like them meeting, having that chance meeting, and then they, were supposed to be with other people, and then they fell in love, and like they were like, and so like the whole idea of like, is this really going to work? Does this actually work for people? Do people actually meet each other and then just like fall in love and like just get thrown together and it
Yeah.
works? But then she grounds it to the point where he pretty much says that he fell in love with his wife on the first date.
Yeah.
And like anybody who, I mean, yeah, marriage is hard work, yes, but like, my spouse and I, like, we talk about the fact that we knew, like, within meeting each other that first time, not that we were necessarily going to get married or be together, but we knew we were going to be in each other's lives for a long time, or at least forever,
Right.
because when you have that connection with somebody, you just kind of feel it,
Oh yeah, absolutely. 100%. And that's like, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, who doesn't love hearing a Spark story like that? Like, the way that he just talks about her is, and then I feel like they do such a good job in this movie with not only like how he talks about meeting his first wife, but then when you have that moment where he sees Annie but doesn't talk to her. It's when she does that
Mm-hmm.
like trip to Seattle and they lock eyes. It's literally watching what his words from the beginning of the movie happening in real time, and that is the thought that goes right back into my head when I see that, and how he looks at her and how he just stops what he's doing and just stares and says hello. And
Yeah.
it's done so beautifully, because you just see the
Mm-hmm.
difference between how he feels about this woman he saw on the street and the woman that he's been dating that his son cannot stand.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah,
she's slowly
exactly. And
realizing.
even like prior, yeah, and even prior to that happening, like right before he doesn't even know. Like, he sees her get off the plane, and then even Jonah doesn't know.
Right.
Like, and it's so funny because he literally says, I'm just dating this woman. You don't fall in love with, like, I mean, it's so funny because he has admitted that he fell in love with his wife on the first date, and then he said, well, I'm just dating this woman because that's what you do. And then he sees Annie get off the plane and is like immediately taken by her, and like that of course is done on purpose, right. But like it's just it basically it disproves his point of what he's trying to say to him, Yeah. And I also love that part too where he's explaining to Jonah about how his mom would like peel the apple like in one like and strip. And then they do that, and they show Meg Ryan and Annie do that. It's so cool.
Yeah. That's those little things that she just clearly does so well with her script writing and with her directing. That something that happened where she's listening to the radio, peeling an apple, and it's that best of segment, and she starts crying again, and then a little while later you get the line about the one big curl, and it's just it tugs at your heartstrings so much. I finished it, I didn't know if I loved it, but it's definitely one that, like, upon talking about, I like more as it goes. And I think, like, it's definitely one that becomes more likely to be watched again, like, in the future for sure, when I don't have to watch 82 other movies
exactly. I understand that.
The line about
like I said,
I love this movie. I love these when he's, when they go into the house that they're doing for Claire. And Rob Reiner was like, well, this is fate. She's divorced. We don't want to redo the cabinets, and you need a wife. So what do you call it when everything intersects? And he just walks in and goes, the Bermuda Triangle.
So good.
It's so good.
They all have moments, like even like the cab, the cab driver, and like the even like the guy who lets her go up on the elevator. Like, everybody in that movie has a moment.
Yes.
Like, it's not like they're like just these extras that you just see in the background. Like, they really, even the smallest roles are roles for her, and that's what I love. And I don't know, like, the sensibility of that. Like, I feel like she has, and like I said, I've seen a lot of interviews with her because I just love her wit and everything. And so I know that journalism did play a huge part in, how she writes films and how she approaches that. But I think her parents were also they were in the industry too. I think they were like, I don't know if they were like screenwriters or not, but like, and this is only her second film that she directed. This is her second film. Yeah. And so she would have had to like rely on people like Mike Nichols directed that movie that I told you about, Heartburn, for her. Right. And I think that he directed another movie that he wrote. And then of course she would have seen Rob Reiner. Like, so here she was like with people like Mike Nichols and Rob Reiner, like being able to watch these amazing directors, and learning from them too. So even though she was like kind of new to Hollywood and like movie making, like she clearly, had connections that helped her, I think, basically become a filmmaker later in life. Like, this was her second career pretty much. So,
oh man, yeah. And she's lovely. I need to go and watch even more things so what would be your top? I know you said Mixed Nuts. What would be where would you what would be your other two for you? We're talking top 3 Nora Ephron films that you would have to recommend to people.
And we're saying the one that she directed? Yes. Ones that she directed, yes. Right? So, as much as I love Sleepless in Seattle, I think that You've Got Mail is an even better rom-com. I like that one a lot. I've probably seen them both equally, but I would probably rank that one in my top 3 with Mixed Nuts. And probably Julia and Julia.
See, I've seen bits and pieces of Julia and Julia when it's been on TV, but I've never sat down and watched it all the way. Mm-hmm. But again, you get Meryl Streep again, right? You get
Meryl Streep, Amy Adams, Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, like I mean, talk about another stacked cast. Like Nora Ephron, she knows, and I like because she has such a small filmography, and I mean, part of that I'm sure was cut short by her, passing away from cancer. But also, whenever I see someone with like a smaller filmography, it just makes me think that they're just very smart with their choices and what they're writing and what they're choosing to direct. Because you can go out and make movies after movies after movies as a director if you want. But when you are smart about your choices and smart about what you're doing, I think that's where you tend to find where things more so stand the test of time, like how a Sleepless in Seattle does, regardless of how it doesn't age well because of the topic and how they meet and everything. Nowadays, it would be like a Craigslist missed connection, and like they would set it up and then nothing would come from it. So I love that. Now, I mean, she has had some misses, obviously. Michael, Bewitched is not one of the ones that was her favorite, people's favorite.
Well, don't even waste your time on that one, please.
Which is worse, the Nicole Kidman or the Will Ferrell?
For the ones that she does well.
Yeah. For the ones that she does well, she does extremely, extremely well. For sure. I do.
And I think that like the ones that she like that I like just mentioned is because she kind of calls back to this era of Hollywood. Like, You've Got Mail is basically a retelling of Shop Around the Corner, which is another classic film, and so, and then like you said, there's like with When Harry Met Sally, you have Casablanca, you have so many different callbacks to like different, how these old films, and that's kind of like how she approaches storytelling, and that's where I think she's successful, and is when she does that.
I agree. That makes complete and total sense. Honestly, like pulling from these films that have done it right and have really, there's a reason they've stood the test of time, right? Like there's a reason why people still talk about Casablanca and An Affair to Remember, and will continue to do so because of the stories and how they're made and what they do. So I think this one is just another one that, again, just kind of continues to linger, whether people make fun of it or not for its subject matter. I still think it was an absolutely beautiful film, and everything about it was really, really well done. Other than some 10-year-old being able to buy a plane ticket. I hope they made him pay those parents back, and that cabbie lost his job. I'm just saying.
Goodness. Gabby Hoffman was also another big part of my childhood because she was in
Now and Then,
which I love. Now and Then.
Yes. Oh my God. Young Devon Sawa with that. I saw it. Was it you I was telling a couple weeks ago? The tweet that I saw. Devon Sawa is one of the best follows I have on Twitter because he will tweet some of the most ridiculously funny shit. And a couple weeks ago, he tweeted, by the time this is out to me, like months at this point, but he had sent out a tweet. He goes, the weatherman on TV said it was going to be in the 90s. So I decided to, it was going to be in the 90s today. So I decided to part my hair down the middle and go look for Christina Ricci.
Oh, love it. Love it.
Oh man. It was wonderful. It was probably one of the best tweets. I died. It was great. Yeah, so I think think we're good to go with like rating this. I can't put it in the 5-star tier like I did with When Harry Met Sally. Again, like it's hard, and I feel like that's just such a hard movie to follow if you're going through Nora Ephron's career. If you're starting out When Harry Met Sally,
agree.
And then you're going to, I almost wish I watched these in reverse, but I'm glad, but by watching When Harry Met Sally first, I get more of a feel and an understanding for how she writes and what she's going for. So it pulls from all of that as she goes into Sleepless in Seattle. But I will say, I'd probably give it 3.5 stars out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I think it's admirable for real.
Yeah. Granted, the other Tom Hanks,
and like to your point.
See, the other Tom Hanks movie I've covered got 2.5, and that was The Burb. So,
Yeah. Like I said, another staple of my childhood, but I haven't rewatched it in so long. So I probably would have to agree with you, not having seen it in probably close to 25 years.
It was a wild ride. That was a wild ride. Great early Tom Hanks, though. I am enjoying going back and watching all of this early Tom Hanks. 100%.
Oh, early Tom Hanks.
He's amazing. He was
like, love Money Pit. You seen Money Pit? Have you seen Money Pit with him and Shelley Long?
No.
I'm guessing that's a no too.
Chances are, Kayleigh, anything you're gonna throw at me is probably gonna be a no. Like on a scale of like,
well, Money Pit with him and Shelley Long was another one of my I watched a lot as a kid because it was on TV a lot. Like the ones that were on television a lot, I just know because I saw them because they were on TV. But I will say this: so you said I will agree with you. I think that of the two that you've seen so far, When Harry Met Sally is definitely a stronger movie, but it was her original concept.
Right.
You got to keep that in mind. Sleepless in Seattle was literally already out there, so she was like the fourth writer to come on and basically fix it,
right,
and then make it
and
so
make
it
what it is.
Her original concept
for sure.
So.
And I feel like you can see that now that I know, because I didn't know that, but now that you mention it, and I've done with doing the research on it, that makes sense, right? You can see where she's put her spin on things, because it was, I think, according to Wikipedia, it was supposed to be a drama, and no one would pick it up. So the fact that she took it, she spun it, she made the comedy aspect out of it. She still killed it. I still think it's a great. She still got nominated for a couple of Oscars with it. So I mean, it didn't do that bad.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, no, she fixed it. I mean, she for someone who again was new to this whole let's get into filmmaking, she was did pretty well for herself.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's why I would definitely say give You've Got Mail a chance, because I think that you see an original concept that she has, but of course she's still banking on that chemistry between Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan for sure.
Which I'm sure they still have.
In that movie, you do get more of it because they have more on-screen time in You've Got Mail.
Right. Because, Sleepless in Seattle, they're in they're in 2 scenes together.
Yeah.
One right in the middle where they don't even talk other than hello, and then right at the end, which is so beautifully done.
Which is also kind of just like hello.
Yeah, pretty much. It's nice to meet you. Well, Kayleigh, before we get out of here, is there anything you got going on? Where can people find you? All that good stuff.
Well, I do. I'm on Instagram and Twitter. It's Kayleigh Vaughn IRL. If you guys want to follow me, I mean, I just post about my life. Nothing fancy.
Perfect. Life's fun.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have. Do you guys still have your GoFundMe going together for Gray's hip?
Yes, we do.
Perfect.
We do have that.
Awesome.
So I will. That's posted on my social media, so you can find it.
Yeah,
there as
we'll plug that too. Help Gray get his new hip, because hip pain is 0 amounts of fun. So we'll make sure we get that in the show notes. People go check that out. If you enjoy what you're hearing, please subscribe, rate, and review on whatever audio platform you're listening to us on. If you're listening on YouTube, please make sure to comment, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on Sleepless in Seattle and any other of the other previous films we've discussed. Be sure to hit the little bell to get the notifications anytime we have new content drop here on Flick and Reel. You can also follow the show on Twitter at NeverSeenItFNR, and you can follow me at Allison Salamone. And until next time, my friends, let's be safe and let's go watch some movies.